well, she likes those colors. Why can't she wear those colors? Or she doesn't know what those colors mean. Am I gay if I wear a rainbow? And the question to that, or the answer to that question is yes, you are gay. Because baby, I could build a castle out of all the bricks they threw at me. We're in New York City. We're in New York City. Before anyone flies to the comment section and starts commenting how weird and gross I am for speculating, I need to say that I do not know Taylor Swift, who is a billionaire. I will never know her, so I don't know how she identifies, nor do I really care, because this isn't even about Taylor Swift per se. So I ask that you go into this with an open mind. As long as you have respectful conversation, that's fine. But if you immediately go to how gross, crazy, psychotic, gay people who find queer references in Taylor's music and talk about it, how sick they are, I'm just going to ignore it and move on because that's not remotely productive at that point. Homosexuality was classified as a mental illness, and it was weaponized against us and caused a lot of harm. So we're not going to use that language to be homophobic. So what is this video about? Well, I want to have a conversation about speculating as a gay person, and explain what gaylor is, what they believe broadly. I'm chronically online and I've read one too many comments calling queer people inherently sick for thinking this and for talking about it. So I want to talk about it finally. I am going to speak my truth and I'm going to come out. Now, this is all in light of the recent mashups that Taylor Swift has been doing through her acoustic set, very sapphic mashups. For example, when she sang in front of thousands and thousands of people, I fell in love with a careless man's careful daughter. She is the best thing that's ever been mine. After intentionally leaving out the part of the song that would paint that line as being from another perspective, someone else singing, she left that out and just sang it from Taylor's perspective. Now, I personally think she has been singing about multiple versions of herself. I can go into that later, but anyways, mainstream Swiftie accounts are also picking up on the Wizard of Oz references that Taylor Swift has used repeatedly, amongst many other references that have a lot of queer historical significance to them. Themes that, mind you, those in the gaylor community have been analyzing for years. So to give some background on myself, I poked fun at the gaylors in 2018 to 2019. I found them silly, and truthfully, I thought Taylor Swift was queer baiting and appropriating our culture, and so I dropped her around that time. I wasn't a huge fan leading up to that album. I was when I was younger, but I kind of dropped off anyways. And then 2020, I believe, rolled around when Folklore came out, and I heard Betty for the first time, and my prefrontal cortex had almost developed by then. And so I thought, wait a second, this sounds gay. And then I came across gaylor content, and I realized that not only was I wrong, I was out of my depth, way out of my depth, mind you. This is a community that has scholars, people with their graduate degrees in queer studies and queer history, people who love literary analysis and do it better than I ever could. They have advanced degrees, lawyers. There are older lesbians and some gay men in this community as well who have lived more than I ever will. They have gone through this history. They have seen the references that she has in her music. So I was wrong to have thought of them as a crazy monolith of people. And I had been homophobic and biphobic. That was not my intention at the time, but that's what it was. And I will go into why that is later on, and why my views have since changed. I have truly learned so much history that I wouldn't have known probably otherwise had I not listened to the gaylor community. And it's funny saying gaylor and gaylorism, but that's what the community is called. So that's what I'm going to use. Now, I am not speculating on anything that Taylor Swift has not said publicly and put into her art intentionally. So I would like to start with a clip of Taylor Swift describing all of the things that make her who she is.
Nailed it. And like, when it's like me, it's like dancers, cats, gay pride, people in country western boots. I start riding a unicorn, like just everything that makes me me.
6, 7, 8.
So we will circle back to that clip where she says gay pride makes me me. But first, let me define what gaylor and gaylorism is and what they broadly believe. So gaylors believe that Taylor Swift has intentionally used queer references and flags in her music and in her art and in her performances. They analyze her music through a queer lens, and because they see these significant references that she has used repeatedly, they just accept that she's probably a part of the LGBTQ community. They heard her say gay pride makes me me, and they took that at face value. I also should clarify that the word gay in this context is used as an umbrella term. It includes bisexuality and other identities that fall within that umbrella. I also want to make it clear that we are not a monolith. No group is ever a monolith. And gaylors, at the heart of the community, for the most part, love to do lyrical analysis. They love gay history and they love talking about gay shit. There's an image of them being crazed people who need Taylor Swift to be gay and they're foaming at the mouth for her to be gay. When again, a lot of them, myself included, the whole reason why I got into this is I love history. I love learning about gay history, and I thought it was exciting to use her music as a jumping off point for that when they analyze her music through a queer lens and have talked about these historical flags, which we'll go into what that is more here in a bit. So, watching that clip of Taylor Swift say gay pride makes her her without much context, while keeping in mind that she has never explicitly stated that she identifies as a straight, heterosexual woman, one may conclude, reasonably so, that she is a part of the LGBTQ community, because she said with her full chest that gay pride is at the foundation of who she is. It makes her the person that she is. And if not, she has centered herself in a marginalized group by saying she's proud of her queer identity without having gone through the same discrimination and hardships as gay people. So hopefully the better alternative is that she is just a part of that community. And I think it's hard for maybe people to understand why that would be inappropriate to do. But if you have not been a part of a group that has faced violence, that has been oppressed, you really should not be claiming their pride and their identity because you were never made to feel ashamed of your queerness and your identity. And the whole point of pride is doing the opposite of what society has made you feel and what they've said about you. So you can't take pride in that when you haven't gone through that. So I can still hear people immediately saying that it's gross and weird that I would talk about that openly and think that about her because she said that it makes her uncomfortable. She said that she's only ever been straight and an ally. And so I'm going to address that too because I do understand where it comes from. But before I do that, we're going to take a look at the Lover era and that album to give more context to that clip that we saw. So how do I say this? Taylor did a number of gay things leading up to the Lover album and through that era. And I'm not just saying that as speculation. She very intentionally was an ally, or at least that's how she was perceived. She released the You Need to Calm Down music video, which was a song explicitly about homophobia people. It was about homophobic people being homophobic and them needing to calm down. It's all about owning your identity and being proud of it and being proud of the things that make you, you. She was in a bisexual colored wig and outfit, and she lived in a queer trailer park where all of the other people in that park were gay. And I mean, in real life too, everyone featured in the trailer park was gay, is gay. So not only was she centered in this town, but she also wore a little sheriff badge, which would indicate that she was kind of like, you know, the head person, the mayor, the sheriff in this town. We also see her in the middle of the lawn chairs with the other gay people, and on the other side of the fence, there's homophobic people yelling at them. So she's in the center of that again. Within the song, Taylor Swift is singing, and she's also placing herself within that group. She's saying, don't step on our gowns. You need to calm down. And as a side note about the colors that she was wearing in that wig, we have seen her do that a number of times, but we've also seen her do it recently in her acoustic set at the Eras Tour. And then at the end of the music video, she says, let's show our pride, because she was supporting an equality act. But again, she placed herself within the community. And you would have to ask yourself, is that an appropriate way of going about allyship? right? Saying that gay pride makes you you if you are not a part of that marginalized community, and saying let's show our pride, placing yourself at the center of that. It'd be more appropriate to say that, let's show our support, let's show solidarity with the queer community, something like that. That's not the only video though that we saw. We also saw that she released the Me music video. Ironically enough, she posted on a certain holiday that she was out now, me out now. That aside though, that could be a coincidence. It's a little funny, I digress. But again, the song was about gay pride again. And she performed it with Brendon Urie, who at the time he had come out as pansexual. And so this was what she was referring to in that clip when she was listing all of the things that make her the person that she is, gay pride being one of those things. She had a number of queer references in this music video, and the one that I really like is that she was dressed up in a pastel business suit, as well as the other woman in the music video. And during the Stonewall riots, lesbians dressed up in pastel business suits and they marched. Actually, I think I misread that. So lesbians did wear suits a lot as a sign of resistance, especially, during Stonewall and after. And of course, leading up to it was dangerous to do that because it would, identify yourself as going against the heteronormative norms. So you could put yourself in danger. But that was a statement piece for a lot of them. And then it looks like in the 90s or the early 2000s, they had a Stonewall, I guess, business meeting or a business group. I don't know, but it says that there were some women there who were in tailored pastel pantsuits. So again, wearing tailored suits as a woman was often associated with queer people, gay people doing that. So that is a reference to that. During that time, Brendon Urie also expressed on Twitter something to the extent of that he was happy to be a part of her journey and her project with the release of that music video. She was wearing rainbow pins during this time. She had bracelets, one that said proud in the bi flag. She had also been given a bracelet that said ally, but we don't see it in the picture that she posted. We just see the bracelet that said proud. She was posting cookies and crafts within the bi flag colors all during this time. She knew what they meant. And I should also mention, which we can go into as well, before Lover came out, she was also wearing rainbows. During Reputation, her opening thing was her in a rainbow for the promotion of that album. So you may be saying, or maybe not you, let me be honest, I'm not mad at whoever is watching this. I'm mad because I'm chronically online, and so I see a lot of comments calling gay people sick and deranged, okay? So that's why I'm a little bit defensive, okay? But anyways, I can hear people saying that, well, she likes those colors, why can't she wear those colors? Or she doesn't know what those colors mean. Am I gay if I wear a rainbow? And the question to that, or the answer to that question is, yes, you are gay. I just find it so silly. If you say gay pride makes you the person that you are and you're a huge ally and you're wearing rainbows and people rightfully assume that you're gay because those colors have meaning, right? So people might assume that about you. You have no right to be grossed out because you're decking yourself out in that color that has meaning and ties to it. If you're going around with this bumper sticker on, right, and people assume, you can't get upset with them for calling you gay or thinking that you're gay. So it's just weird, the argument to me of people being that's still gross, and she's allowed to wear rainbows, and yeah, of course she's allowed to wear rainbows, and people are allowed to comment on it because they have eyes and those colors have meaning. Also, it's one thing if Taylor Swift was a kid who lived down the street and you're speculating on them and going around and talking about how they might be gay, but they're not doing that much to be perceived, right? You're just picking up on it and you're going to possibly out them. That's one thing, but she's a 35-year-old or 34-year-old billionaire, okay, who has continued to just deck herself out in these colors and say what she said, and it's people are going to have assumptions about you. And they might start reading your music even more through a queer lens because of it. I guess what I'm trying to say is I think people take the same good hearted, genuine fears of people being outed, and they don't want that happening. And so they apply that logic also to Taylor Swift, even though Taylor Swift is doing this. And if you were deep in the closet, you wouldn't be wearing, being a walking pride flag multiple times continuously. Because if you don't want to be perceived as being queer and outed, you're not going to keep doing that. So I just bring up these two examples to illustrate that Taylor Swift is aware of queer history and flagging, which we will discuss the significance of now. Queer flagging refers to signaling your identity to other queer people through your style, through the colors that you wear, and the symbols that you wear. And you do this so you don't even have to state your sexual orientation explicitly. And it has historical significance. So starting from the 1800s onwards, queer flagging has been used to find other queer people and signal to them, especially at times when it was not at all safe to be out and it was illegal. That's why it's so significant to us, because that was the only way that you could find other people. So for example, handkerchiefs were used to signal to other men that they were also interested in men. Carabiners have been worn by lesbians to signal to other women that they're interested. Other obvious examples would be wearing literal rainbows and the colors of the LGBTQ flags. In the same vein, there is a very famous phrase and code that is, "Are you a friend of Dorothy?" This was one of the most popular and famous historical codes. It seems to have started in the 1950s, although it might have been before then because it was a code. So if you asked someone if they were a friend of Dorothy and they replied yes, then it was safe to assume that person was gay. It was the most prominent in the 1980s, I believe, amongst gay men. And I'll have to put this in here. I could be wrong. I learned it from a podcast, which I will talk about. But during that time, because of how popular that code was on naval bases, I think, there ended up being an investigation by the FBI or some agency because they kept hearing about Dorothy, and so they thought that there was some underground plot of a woman named Dorothy and an organization of gay men. So I just think that's really funny. It was very popular. And as the name would suggest, it does have ties to the Wizard of Oz. There are two theories, I believe, of where it came from. There was a woman named Dorothy Parker. I don't know a whole lot of specifics, but she would throw a lot of parties. She hung out in gay circles, and so to go to her party, they would ask, "Are you a friend of Dorothy?" And if they were, then they would be allowed to proceed. But the most common explanation is Judy Garland from the 1939 release of The Wizard of Oz. Judy Garland became a gay icon. And so that's where it's really thought to have come from, or at least now that's how we view it. Modern day examples would include, do you listen to Girl in Red? She's an out artist. She sings about women, sings things like, "I don't want to be your friend. I want to kiss your lips." Obviously, this works for other gay artists too. If you're mentioning a lot of queer artists, people might assume that you are queer. So let's continue with Dorothy. Taylor Swift has a song called Dorothea from her Evermore album. And in her Evermore prologue, she writes about how Dorothea left town for Hollywood dreams, but she ends up returning to an old flame for the holiday. Taylor's character in the song is singing to a woman named Dorothea who has left town, and she's reminiscing about their friendship from when they were younger. And she's saying that it would never be, it's never too late to come back to her side. Are you still the same soul I met under the bleachers? She sings about the stars and how they're as bright as Dorothea's eyes. So there is an implication that there may have been more going on than just a friendship. They were really close friends. And since Taylor has used a lot of Oz imagery, especially also in recent times with her Karma music video, gaylors started using Dorothea and friends of Dorothea for our community, because the song is really, really clever. If she was making that saying, friend of Dorothy, and modifying it to be a friend of Dorothea to represent sapphic relationships. And it's really common for queer girls, especially, to have these friendships that are sapphic, especially when you're younger and you live in a very heteronormative society where all you see is male-female relationships. It's pretty common to end up expressing your sexual orientation with your friends and having really, really close friends, and you meet them under the bleachers and everyone just assumes you are the best of friends. You are just a friend of Dorothea. So imagine our surprise when Taylor Swift mashed up It's Nice to Have a Friend with Dorothea during her acoustic set. Not only can Dorothea be viewed through a sapphic lens, obviously on its own, but she mashed it up to be a reference to the most popular historic queer flag and code, which gaylors have been speaking about for years. There's a creator named Tess who's a gaylor. She has really great content. She has created a podcast called Friends of Dorothea, and it was created over a year before Taylor Swift did that mashup. It's something that has been really popular within our community. And kind of funny enough too, a lot of people did not like that mashup. They thought it was really random. Also, the two keys of the songs don't really mash up together very well, so it was difficult for her to sing that mashup. And so it meant a lot to the gaylor community that those two songs were combined. Her singing that she is a friend of Dorothea. Oz is gay. Ariana Grande has even said it. And the reason why it has such strong ties to our community is because of the themes that a lot of gay people related to, like being different or queer, having queer friends, having to find your chosen family and your chosen friend group, leaving the black and white world to step out into color. It became a metaphor for a lot of gay men who were leaving their small town communities, conservative areas, to move to cities like New York, San Francisco, cities with large gay communities where you could feel more free. To not allow us to comment on queer themes, to write about them in articles, and the significance of the Wizard of Oz and historical flagging, that's an erasure of our identities and history, which elders have fought for, they faced immense violence for. They face this violence to be seen and to see one another. But if you are someone who has called gaylors crazy, inherently sick, psychotic, I really would ask you to think about what you have just heard here if you had not ever seen that or heard of it, historical flagging. Because if you continue to do that after knowing that, you are just being homophobic. And that goes for other gay people too, myself included. And I really don't think Taylor Swift would take too kindly to calling people psychotic and that they need to be institutionalized when she has a literal music video about getting shock therapy. So those mashup examples are more recent, but now we've established the significance of flagging to our history. So let's circle back to the Lover era. So in 2019, she was interviewed by Vogue, and this article is wielded like a religious text against gaylors. I do understand why it's been latched onto that article, and then also the 1989 prologue is used in the same way, which we'll get into. But in that Vogue interview, they discussed her LGBTQ activism, her masters being sold, and just more broadly, her career. So the interviewer noted that people were mad at her for not speaking up more about gay rights. But the interviewer was confused by that and thought that these people weren't actually paying enough attention because Taylor Swift had been referencing the queer community a decade prior to 2019, the Lover era. It was subtle, but it was there. So for example, in her music video for Mean in Speak Now, almost a decade prior, there's a boy dressed in all lavender who's being bullied by the football players. It goes without saying, the color lavender has huge significance and has always been associated with the queer community. For example, there was the lavender scare in the mid-century, kind of a play on the Red Scare, where a bunch of gay people were being sought out and fired from their jobs. Of course, when she moved to New York City and released 1989, the opening line to the album is, "You can want who you want, boys and boys, girls and girls." So this is the quote that's used. The interviewer said, "I asked her, why get louder about LGBTQ rights now?" And Taylor Swift said, "I'm getting louder now because rights are being stripped from basically everyone who isn't a straight, white, cisgender male. I didn't realize until recently that I could advocate for a community that I'm not a part of. It's hard to know how to do that without being so fearful of making a mistake that you just freeze," etc. So it's read as if Taylor Swift said that she declared her identity as a straight woman who was grossed out by speculation in this article. That's not what was said though. And prior to that, the interviewer had noted that she had been talking about the queer community, although subtly, prior to 2019. So she didn't just suddenly wake up one day and realize that she could advocate for gay rights. Now you have to keep in mind, prior to gay marriage was not legal nationally until 2015. Okay, her career was taking place at a time that it was not legal to even marry in the United States nationally. So there were references like 2009 or 2010 when Speak Now came out. She had that in her music video. So like there were references along the way. She was interviewed about her 1989 album, about why she included that lyric, boys and boys and girls and girls. This was way before 2019. She had pride speeches at her concerts in the Reputation era leading up to that, prior to 2019.
About how it's very brave to be vulnerable about your feelings in any sense, in any situation, but it's even more brave to be honest about your feelings and who you love when you know that might be met with adversity from society.
What she said is that rights are being stripped from everyone who isn't straight, white, and cisgender, and this was at a time during the first Trump administration where anti-trans rhetoric, drag queens being, I don't know if I can say that, all of this was at like a peak. Anti-immigration, racist rhetoric. So there were multiple things that could have been referenced. Also, it's not illegal for your identity to change over time and to not feel a part of a community. We have to keep in mind too that we are not a monolith. So again, it's not just gay rights. There's trans rights as well, and I don't feel like I'm a part of the trans community even though I'm under the LGBTQ umbrella. And we'll go into more examples that have been used against gaylors, but I just want to say Taylor Swift is a billionaire 35-year-old woman. If she wanted to clear the rumors and the speculation, she could make a public statement from her mouth saying, I am straight, I'm an ally, I realized I might have overcrossed a boundary though during this time period. I want to make it clear though that I support the LGBT community, but I'm not a part of it. She could say that. She has not said that though. So let's stop putting the onus on gay people who took what she said at face value and not a billionaire. Furthermore, which has already been said, but if I'm a fierce ally who understands what these colors symbolize, I have no right to be grossed out and upset by speculation when I said that gay pride makes me the person that I am. I think there's a misconception that gaylors have thought of just seeing like one or two references, and so they suddenly think that she's gay or that they're projecting on her and they just want her to be gay because they find her so like hot or something like that. And that's just not the case. It's been a lot of things. This would be a 6-hour video if I went over every single possible queer reference that had been used and did a full analysis of every album that she's had. But here's another example. There was a person that made an edit of Taylor's bodysuit and they called it like the lesbian bodysuit. And gaylors actually kind of believed that she had come out in that. Okay, so they're like, whoa. And then they realized it was an edit. Okay, fast forward months later, Taylor Swift comes out in that bodysuit. And somehow it's even more of the lesbian flag than what the lesbian flag is in the original bodysuit. But then there continued to be gaslit. Now, does that mean she identifies as a lesbian? No, I don't know her. I have no idea how she identifies, okay? But people are allowed to comment on what they see. When I wear rainbows, I'm signaling that you should assume I'm not straight. And if you do assume that I'm straight, I'm more offended than if you assumed I was gay. Because again, if I didn't want to be perceived at all and I didn't want people talking about it, I wouldn't keep wearing those colors after knowing what they meant. I wouldn't keep using these flags, like literal flags. And I would just clear it up if I needed to clear it up that I accidentally maybe led people on with some of my past statements. I told you none of it was accidental. Moreover, even if you say that you're an ally, that does not and should not shut down any and all discussion of queer subtext in your art, within lyrics, reading them through that lens. So let me say, I could see that people could still be like, okay, well, it's still gross. You're still outing them from the closet. They said that they're uncomfortable about it. So we will go more into those where that idea comes from based on like the 1989 prologue and another article that came out. But first, she says she wants people to analyze her lyrics and read and hear her lyrics. So let's do that. Diving into her most obviously queer song, in my opinion, putting aside the time she wrote a literal manual on how to score the girl from the man's perspective, Hits Different. Let's talk about Hits Different. Hits Different is a song about how a relationship that ended hits different from every other breakup that they've had, and it's resulted in catastrophic blues. The entire song is addressed to this ex-muse. So she sings, "Each bar plays our song, nothing has ever felt so wrong. Oh my, love is a lie, shit my friends say to get me by. It hits different this time. Catastrophic blues, moving on was always easy to do. It hits different. It hits different because it's you." And she goes on then to sing about how her past flings were different because she would just swap out these Kens. She would just ghost. She'd skip town like an asshole outlaw. And then she goes on to say she can never not cry at their bar, and I slur your name till someone puts me in a car. I stopped receiving invitations. And then we have a whole bridge and verse where she's crying out to this lost muse. She says, "I found a hat, cried over the artifacts, I cursed the space that I needed, I traced the evidence, try to make it make some sense why the wound is still bleeding. You were the one that I loved. Don't need another metaphor, it's simple enough. A wrinkle in time like the crease by your eye. This is why we shouldn't kill off the main guy. Dreams of your hair and your stare and sense of belief in the good in the world you once believed in me. And I held you, and I felt you for a while. I bet I could still melt your world, argumentative, antithetical dream girl." So grammatically, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for it not to be addressed to the girl. I could still melt your world, girl. But that aside, the whole context of the song is singing to this person. In the last part of it, she's saying dreams of your hair and your stare and sense of belief. Antithetical dream girl. She's singing to the dream girl in the song. More context, it's a song about a relationship and breakup that was so different from every other plastic Ken that she would just swap out, that this one hits different. It's catastrophic. And that's also a bit of a joke in gay circles, that relationship, a sapphic breakup, hits different than any other breakup. So why can't I call that gay? Regardless of how Taylor Swift identifies, people can say that it's gay and it can be read through a queer lens, and that's how I read it. Now again, does it mean that she identifies that way? I don't know, but a lot of gay people relate to that song. So I need to add that Taylor Swift refers to herself as a man often. Like, she literally has a song called The Man. She refers to herself as a cursed man wandering through the night in Dear Reader, which is kind of an introspective, personal song. The way Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince is grammatically structured, she would be the Heartbreak Prince. So it's you and me, Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince. And those are just a few examples. So that's why the line in Hits Different, the line, "This is why we shouldn't kill off the main guy," to me reads as her referring to herself being killed off from the plot being and centering around the argumentative dream girl. Now, could it be a literal guy that she's referring to? Possibly so, but she also calls the guys the Kens, and Ken is not the main character in Barbie's world. And grammatically, it's just really clunky and odd for her to be referring to herself given the structure of the song, but I digress. So just going off of that, despite her lyrics, addressed to a woman muse and the sapphic mashups that she's been doing, straight is still assumed to be the default when seeing a blonde, feminine presenting woman, to the point I think that it gives people a cognitive dissonance. It certainly did me in the past. And they go on the defensive when a person points out that they might be singing to a woman or might be doing gay things. As I truthfully don't think this would be as controversial of a thing if they weren't a blonde, blue-eyed, feminine woman. Like, is that person straight, the straightest woman alive, or are they just a blonde, feminine woman? Personally, I find it offensive to assume people are straight until proven guilty, and there's nuance to this. So for example, Shawn Mendes, that gets brought up to like that and Kit Connor. But when people speculated on Shawn Mendes, a lot of it was based off of like stereotypical gay things, and he did come out and said that he didn't want people speculating. It made him uncomfortable because he was young. I think he got famous at like 16 or something, so he was really young. I can understand why you wouldn't want people doing that when he wasn't dressed in like a rainbow flag. He wasn't doing these things where you would necessarily want that to be analyzed and commented on. That aside, the reason why I find it offensive to assume straight until proven guilty is because we have to officially come out, make a statement, and keep coming out because we're pushed into the closet constantly when other people assume that we're straight. And assuming or stating that someone is the straightest woman ever just because they're blonde and feminine is offensive, intentional or not, because it perpetuates our relationships and our identities not being taken seriously. We're always just close friends, as history has seen. The same thing was said about Sabrina Carpenter recently on a gay podcast. I believe that she's the straightest woman they've ever seen. 2 weeks later, she's singing Good Luck Babe. She's kissing Jenna Ortega. She's arresting women at her concert for being too hot. She has scarlet kisses all over her body, lipstick stains. All of your favorite artists are gay. Now, going off of the scarlet lipstick stains, let's go over the lyrics for Maroon. Maroon is a song which can be interpreted as her singing about the scarlet lips, which she used to call home. And this is off the most recent Before TTPD, so the Midnight's album. The song opens with her drinking with a muse, and there's a cheeky line where she goes, "How'd we end up on the floor anyway? Your roommate's cheap-ass screw-top rosé, that's how." So they're like joking with each other. And to me, that reads as a gay joke. They were roommates. They were really close friends. Before that, she does have a line that opens up with laughing with my feet in your lap like you were my closest friend. And again, this is just a call, in my opinion, to being seen as just friends or roommates in the public eye and people not thinking anything of your relationship. She then goes on to sing about scarlet lips in the chorus. The burgundy on my t-shirt when you splashed your wine into me, and how the blood rushed into my cheeks, so scarlet it was. The mark you saw on my collarbone, the rest that grew between telephones, the lips I used to call home, so scarlet it was maroon. To me, that's such a clever, sapphic song. Again, I don't know how Taylor Swift identifies, nor do I care, but it can be read as gay. Recently in her acoustic set where she's been mashing up her songs, she's also been wearing these new, vibrant dresses that just so happen to look like the bi flag, this one. And so she mashed up Out of the Woods with Gracie Abrams' song Us, which Taylor Swift also helped write that song with Gracie. And then the merch for Us is very similar to the merchandise for me. And the song Us is basically addressed to a muse or an ex, and they're asking them if they regret that they had to keep the relationship a secret. The song has she, her pronouns and can be read as sapphic just on its own, but they mashed it up to be a sapphic duet. So when paired with Taylor Swift's Out of the Woods, it goes, you took a Polaroid of us and discovered that the rest of the world was in black and white, but we were in screaming color. Are we out of the woods yet? Are we in the clear yet? So they mashed up those songs together, which Out of the Woods in 1989, we will get into that in a bit here, but they mashed that up. There are references to Babylon in both Taylor Swift's Cowboy Like Me and Gracie's Us. So the Gardens of Babylon are a place that they're said to have existed, but there's no like concrete evidence of them having existed. So the mashup seems to tell the story of coming out with the evidence, so to speak, no longer hiding in the secrecy of the woods, rather saying, we are here, we're loud, and we're in full color. I guess now is a good time to talk about my theory, I guess you could say. So there was a person on Twitter who posted about how Taylor Swift keeps referencing Oz and Yellow, the Yellow Brick Road, closets in her visuals. And then she got grossed out when people pointed out that those references are heavily tied to the queer community.
No, absolutely not. We're not going to do this. This is a Gaylor theory that we originated more than 5 years ago. It has been endlessly discussed on Reddit, on Twitter, on TikTok, because it has deep roots in queer culture, queer history, queer art. You stole it, het-washed it, and tweeted out a half-baked theory that doesn't make any sense once it's stripped of its queer context. And then you got mad when people pointed out the queer connotations of this theory. And then I logged into TikTok this morning and saw somebody who follows me doing the exact same thing in a video. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Taylor's use of the color yellow and why gaylors have been talking about it for so long. The very short version of this theory is that Taylor uses the color yellow to signify the closet. I did not originate this theory. I first saw it discussed on Tumblr in the Lover era. Riverwitch7 on TikTok has put a lot of work into this theory. Annika has put a lot of work into this theory. I've added bits and pieces over the years. A lot of gaylors have contributed to this, and this is just kind of a compilation of all of that work. Now, if you've never seen the movie But I'm a Cheerleader, Taylor Allison Swift certainly has, and she repeatedly references this movie in her Lover visuals. But I'm a Cheerleader is a 1999 satirical comedy about a teenager who doesn't realize she's a lesbian, but her parents suspect that she's gay, so they send her to conversion therapy where she figures out that she is, in fact, a lesbian. In But I'm a Cheerleader, the color yellow symbolizes the closet for the main character, Megan. Before she realizes that she is a lesbian, she wears yellow. When her parents sit her down and tell her that they think that she's a lesbian, they are in a room that is decorated with yellow. And when she arrives at the camp, the room where they do conversion therapy is yellow. And Taylor clearly adopts this meaning of the color yellow in her Lover visuals. Here in the red room, we see her and her lover both wearing yellow, and they are alone. This is before the party. You can see there's no mess on the floor. They're dancing, they're being intimate and sweet together. But then everyone shows up to the party, and Taylor is now alone on the couch. Her lover is across the room. They're not together. They're not showing affection to each other. Taylor looks really sad through this whole scene. She kind of watches her lover flirt with somebody else. And this leads to a fight. After the party, they have a fight with each other. This is meant to show the stress that the closet has on a queer relationship. When you're hiding and sneaking around, it puts a lot of strain. But they make up. And after the party, when everybody leaves, when there's glitter on the floor after the party, they're together again. They're laughing, they're being silly, they're being intimate again because they're alone. In the fishbowl scene, which we know and Taylor has confirmed symbolizes her public life, Taylor has yellow in her hair because when she is in public, she is closeting. In the yellow room in the house, this is the only room where Taylor and her lover are not comfy and cozy together, where they're not sharing lovely, intimate moments. They're walking upside down on the ceiling. They're trying to jump to each other. They're playing games. This is not a comfortable room. There's no couch, there's no chair, there's no table. This is just them trying to survive in this world together. And just in case you hadn't caught on to the fact that yellow symbolizes the closet, she literally goes through an entire closet of yellow clothes. Every single item in this closet is yellow, even though Taylor wears many other colors throughout this video, green and blue and pink, but everything in her closet is yellow. And also you notice the Dorothy basket down there. We'll come back to that. Then we have the You Need to Calm Down music video, where Taylor centers herself in a queer community, where she is surrounded by openly queer celebrities. Every other single person in this video is an openly queer celebrity. And look what color Taylor is wearing. Yellow. Because while everybody else in this picture is out, she is in the closet. That's why she's wearing a color that blends into the chair instead of a color that stands out from the chair like everybody else. In the Me music video, as soon as Taylor steps outside her door, she's wearing what color? Yellow. When she's outside, when she's in the fishbowl, when she's at the party, she's wearing yellow because yellow symbolizes the fact that she is still in the closet. And the Lover era is not the first time Taylor has used this color in this way. Way back in the Speak Now era, in the Mean music video, we see this queer boy wearing a lavender sweater and lavender bow tie, which that Vogue 2019 article that y'all like to throw at us, the writer specifically points out that this is a symbol for this boy's queerness. He is surrounded by football players, and what color are they wearing? Yellow. Lavender is a well-known symbol of queerness, and as Riverwitch7 pointed out, lavender is directly opposite yellow on the color wheel, which is why it is such a perfect color to symbolize the closet. She has continued to use yellow in this way. At the end of the Bejeweled music video, when she ghosts the prince and hides away in her castle, what color is she wearing? Yellow. In the Karma music video, we see Taylor in an hourglass, trapped behind glass, almost like a glass closet, one might say. And what color is she wearing? Yellow. As lavender sand counts down the time toward something big that she has planned, an announcement of sorts, perhaps. And then we have Dorothy Taylor, which this is a whole part of queer history all on its own. You can Google Friend of Dorothy if you want more information. And Dorothy Taylor is skipping down the yellow brick road. What other artist has famously talked about the yellow brick road in his music? Oh yeah, Elton John, in a song he wrote about coming to terms with leaving his old life behind and coming out of the closet. This is not the first time Taylor has explicitly referenced The Wizard of Oz, which you all might have noticed if you weren't so busy mocking her for this song. And she also made it crystal clear where that yellow brick road leads. To the rainbow. Right now, Dorothy and her basket are still in the closet. But it's almost time to take the yellow brick road to the rainbow. I'm already at 6 minutes for this video, and I know that there are parts of this theory that I have left out. If you ignore all of the queer history and culture that influenced Taylor Swift when she made these music videos, you are left with the most shallow possible reading of her artwork. You're left with yellow closet lead to rep come soon. And in my opinion, that does an immense disservice to the spectacular artist that Taylor Swift is.
This leads me to my next point, because there's an argument that's made that Taylor Swift is being outed. She's being pulled out of the closet, which there is nuance to it, like I brought up Shawn Mendes. But to me, I believe Taylor Swift is painting a picture, a narrative, a story of sorts through this Eras tour with her visuals and her acoustic mashups, which she wants people to notice and comment on and analyze. She wouldn't be including these closet visuals if it was not a part of a narrative that people can analyze. So I don't think she's referring to them in the way of like, I'm deeply closeted, do not comment on this. And the fact that I have, all of these closet visuals and I keep wearing these flags and I have Oz imagery. So like I said, more so it's a story, it's a narrative arc of her past where she's reclaiming it. And she wants people to analyze that. And there's a lot of tales with the hero's journey symbolism, not just the Wizard of Oz. So that is a specific one to use. Let's go now into another song, Right Where You Left Me, which is one of her most clever songs in my opinion with flagging. So the song references a relationship that has ended and she's singing about how she can't move on from that breakup. And the reason why it's so clever is because she's referencing a hairpin drop. So dropping hairpins is a queer expression. Basically, if you're dropping hairpins, you're dropping flags and clues that you're queer to other queer people. Without dropping pins, people just usually assume that you're straight. And back in the day when you didn't know if it was safe, and still, it's kind of like that today, if you don't know if it's safe to come out to someone, you can drop hairpins. Looks like it may have become an expression in the 60s, but it probably dated further back than that. So let's dive into the lyrics more so to give you context. So the song starts off with, friends break up, friends get married, strangers get born, strangers get buried, trends change, rumors fly through new skies, but I'm right where you left me. She has a lot of references to friends in her music and like closest friends and hiding in plain sight with someone. And then she goes into how she's at the restaurant and she says, I swear you could hear a hairpin drop right when I felt the moment stop. Glass shattered on the white cloth, everybody moved on, but I stayed there. Dust collected on my pinned up hair, and they expected me to find somewhere, some perspective, but I sat and stared right where you left me. You left me no choice but to stay here forever. So dropping hairpins is letting people know that you're gay. Pinned up hair is also a reference to concealing or maintaining a heteronormative, conventional mask and appearance. To me, pinned up hair basically would indicate not living in a free or true way. When your hair is down, you are more free and living in alignment with yourself. And then that's paired up with like literal dust collecting on the hair. The pinned up hair may be saying, well, that's the expression. It's a pin drop. You could hear a pin drop, but it's actually not. If you look up hairpin drop, what you will see is that it's also known as the hairpin drop that was heard around the world, which refers to the Stonewall riots, which we will get into 1989 also, where her New York album. So anyways, I already spoke about the Vogue article, so now I have to talk about the 1989 prologue, which is also used as a holy biblical text to be hateful towards gaylors. And it's taken out of context too, usually. So in the prologue, she refers back to that time in her life, 2013 to 2014, when the media hounded her for being a boy crazy psycho. They portrayed her as someone who could only write whiny music about her breakups. They also painted her as dating every single man that she was seen with, and the rhetoric around her was often deeply sexist, and it was centered on slut shaming, commenting on her body, and criticizing everything about her. So here's what was said in the prologue. It became clear to me that for me, there was no such thing as casual dating or even having a male friend who you platonically hang out with. If I was seen with him, it was assumed I was sleeping with him. And so I swore off hanging out with guys, dating, flirting, or anything that could be weaponized against me by a culture that claimed to believe in liberating women, but consistently treated me with the harsh moral codes of the Victorian era. Being a consummate optimist, I assumed I could fix this if I simply changed my behavior. I swore off dating and decided to focus only on myself, my music, my growth, and my female friendships. If I only hung out with my female friends, people couldn't sensationalize or sexualize that, right? I would learn later on that people could and people would. So this was the green light for people to go harass gay people online, which was great. So anyway, she was talking about how she couldn't escape the criticism and speculation overall about her relationships and friendships during this times. And it goes both ways. But people like to use this again to say that Taylor Swift is specifically calling gaylors sick and demented for sexualizing her, yet they say nothing about how that applied to men too, and the speculation around them, and the slut shaming. And a lot of people in the gaylor world did stop speculating entirely about her relationships. But Taylor Swift has also said that she doesn't like it when her music is paternity tested, or she implied that in the Reputation prologue. But that only seems to apply to gaylors and not anyone else. So talking about queer themes or assuming someone is queer is not the same thing as sexualizing someone and being like invasive and gross. And it may not be your intention to imply this, but gay people are not inherently like sexual freaks. And again, that was weaponized against us in the past and still is. Sexuality and sexual orientation is not the same thing as sexualizing someone. So it's a bit of a self-report on how you view gay people if immediately you go to how people are sexualizing her by speculating and being really disgusting when they're just analyzing her lyrics or her flags that she wears and that were put in her music, and the fact that she said gay pride makes me me. And so, I'm sorry if I get canceled, but why do the heteros get to have all the fun? They get to have fun with all the gossip and stuff. Why can't the homos have a little bit of fun as a treat? Listen, I saw some unhinged things about Maddie Healy that were being said, and about Travis Kelce. And those people, they were completely serious with the stuff that they post and talk about. So in the prologue, she goes on to address the reader. She says, "You, who knew that maybe a girl who surrounds herself with female friends in adulthood is making up for a lack of them in the childhood, not starting a tyrannical hot girl cult." So some of the speculation that she was referring to is not only also about her being in relationships or being sexualized with her female friendships, but that her girl friends were also weaponized against her to be sexist. Like, they're thinking, who do these girls think they are by swearing off dudes and hanging out with only each other, and basically just attacking her friends also, and she could not escape criticism regardless of what she was doing. And so in this prologue, it also said, "You who saw the seeds of allyship and advocating for equality, and welcome to New York," which they will use this as, she said she's an ally, she said it's gross that you're speculating. And it's like, for one, if you say that you're an ally and gay pride makes you you, then clearly you've probably been inspired by gay history and gay culture and references. So people are allowed to analyze that and view your music and your performances through that lens when you open yourself up to that interpretation, especially based on her past statements. Also, like I said, before 2015, gay marriage, for example, was not legal yet in all states. So it would have been seen as just sowing the seeds of allyship and advocating for equality and whatnot. So she could be just an ally. Again, I don't know how she identifies. She could be straight and just being really tacky. But in any case, doesn't erase the queer subtext and gay stuff that she has used. Also, like I said, your identity is allowed to change over time. Again, she's referencing this time in her life in 2014, 2013. So times change. So let's get into 1989, shall we? 1989, her opening lyric to the album is "Welcome to New York. You can want who you want, girls and girls and boys and boys." So she had just moved to New York City. She said she was reinventing herself. She was excited to be into such a free city. Like I mentioned earlier, New York City was home to a lot of gay people, and the Stonewall Inn, which was the most popular gay bar. The Stonewall riots in 1969 is what launched the queer liberation movement into the public eye. She also references the New Romantics in this album, has a song called New Romantics. Mind you, this was a subculture movement comprised of a lot of queer people and artists who had flamboyant, eccentric fashion, and they went against conventional norms. And then let's take a look at the lyrics from New Romantics. So let's start off with, "We show off our different scarlet letters. Trust me, mine is better. We're so young, but we're on the road to ruin. We play dumb, but we know exactly what we're doing. We cry tears of mascara in the bathroom. Honey, life is just a classroom. 'Cause baby, I could build a castle out of all the bricks they threw at me. And every day is like a battle, but every night with us is like a dream. Baby, we're the New Romantics. Come on, come along with me. Heartbreak is the national anthem. We sing it proudly. We are too busy dancing to get knocked off our feet. Baby, we're the New Romantics. The best people in life are free. We hang back. It's all in the timing. It's poker. He can't see it in my face, but I'm about to play my ace." Go look up Lady Gaga and her explanation of poker face. "We need love, but all we want is danger. We team up, and then we switch sides like a record changer. The rumors are terrible and cruel, but honey, most of them are true. 'Cause baby, I could build a castle out of all the bricks they threw at me. We're in New York City. We're in New York City. Come on." And she goes on, "We sing it proudly. We're too busy dancing to get knocked off our feet. Baby, we're the New Romantics. The best people in life are free." Okay, also, I need to talk about Stonewall and the importance of dancing at Stonewall. So it was the only gay bar in New York City that actually allowed queer people to dance with one another. So this is from a Vice article too. It says, "The point that gets lost in the history of the place is that the Stonewall was, above all, a dance bar. The violent protests in reaction to the police raid were motivated, at least partly, by these marginalized groups feeling that their freedom to dance was being threatened." I can't pronounce their name, I'm sorry, but Thomas said it was the only gay bar where we could slow dance. He participated in the riots, and he went on to say, "That had everything to do with the rebellion," he continues. "It was totally spontaneous. We were angry that we couldn't dance." So yeah, the Stonewall Inn was very important also because it allowed trans people and drag queens and other people to go there. It was one of the, freest, queerest place within the city. It was raided frequently though, and when the Stonewall riots happened, a lot of drag queens and other queer people, they actually danced through the protest and made a chorus line. Back to the Vice article, it says, "Greenwich Village was the freest part of New York City, which was the freest of all cities. It was all about freedom in those days." And that was coming from Martin Boyce, who was a veteran. He was at the riots. Taylor, you don't see how that could have been saw as being queer in New York City, where your opening line to the album is like boys and boys and girls, queer liberation, the history of New York City, and the New Romantics, and the bricks, and the switching up sides like a record changer. So yeah, those references are directly tied to our history, and if she is just an ally, it would be nice to say that you were inspired heavily by queer culture and history, and that's why you referenced it a lot, and make that very clear that that was the case, because that definitely was the case in 1989 and other albums, which we'll get into. I have no idea how long this is going to be. So that's not just the New Romantics. There's How to Get the Girl, which is a manual on how to get the girl back. Out of the Woods, singing about stepping out of the woods and the world is in black and white, but this person that she's with, they're in screaming color. Songs like I Know Places, where she's talking about how they need to be in secret and run and hide, which, yes, in the context of the time, she was talking about the media as well, I assume, and that's why she had to keep things secret. But again, when we look at the context of the album opening with the line, You know what the line is. It can be read that way. Actually, let's go into these songs more. So in I Know Places, she's talking about being in plain sight with a muse, and no one seems to know, again, that she's with them romantically, but she's very anxious that they will get found out. So she sings, "You stand with your hand on my waistline, it's a scene and we're out here in plain sight. I can hear them whisper as we pass by, it's a bad sign. Something happens when everybody finds out. See the vulture circling, dark clouds. Love's a fragile little flame. It could burn out. It could burn out." So she's used in plain sight in a few times. In Dear Reader, she's also done it in the song Dress, where she sings, "Our secret moments in a crowded room. They've got no idea about me and you." Me and you. In her song Wonderland, she sings about how she fell down a rabbit hole with this person after having a curious mind and being too in love to think straight. She sings, "Flashing lights and we took a wrong turn and we fell down a rabbit hole. You held on tight to me 'cause nothing's as it seems, and spinning out of control. Didn't they tell us, don't rush into things? Didn't you flash your green eyes at me? Haven't you heard what becomes of curious minds? Oh, didn't it all seem new and exciting? I felt your arms twisting around me. I should have slept with one eye open at night. We found Wonderland. You and I got lost in it. And we pretended it could last forever. We found Wonderland. And life was never worse, but never better. So we went on our way, too in love to think straight. All alone, or so it seemed, but there were strangers watching, and whispers turned to talking, and talking turned to screams." So she ends up losing the person in this, the muse in this song, and they searched the world to try to find a love like that again, but they went mad in the process. This relationship was something that she was curious about, and it was all new, brand new, and exciting, unlike anything ever before, and they were too in love to think straight. Life was worse with this love in some way, but never better. It was also the best time of her life. Too in love to think straight. Very, very interesting. Or a crooked love and a line straight down? What does that mean? Also, she doesn't have a lot of he, him pronouns in a lot of these songs, which again, no, we're a crooked love and a straight line down. Guess you want to run and hide, but it made us turn right back around. What does that mean, Taylor Swift? Tell me, the class, we are aching to know. So Taylor was asked in 2014 about her song, Welcome to New York, and she said that she was happy that gay marriage was being legalized. People knew that these songs were queer regardless of how she identified. And like her prologue said, at the time, these would have just been seen as the seeds of allyship, and that's how they were viewed by the larger public. Now, I've also mentioned all of the friend references that Taylor has throughout all of her albums repeatedly. So in Dress from the album Reputation, she references a relationship taking place in plain sight, but that no one knows about. And it's with someone she doesn't want, just like a best friend. And this resonates with a lot of gay women, and it's a prominent theme. We were roommates, laughing like we were each other's closest friends, being a friend of Dorothea who you meet under the bleachers, but who you might not just want as a best friend or a close friend, but that's how the public is going to view you. In history, our relationships were always seen as us just being close friends. There's a lot of other themes that she has about secret affairs and hiding in plain sight, how she prefers to hide in plain sight, like in her song Dear Reader. So we also will talk about Evermore, but let's talk about Betty from Folklore before then. Now, as I mentioned, Betty was the song that put me down the Gaylor pipeline. If you hear that song without any additional context and you just listen to the song, it's Taylor Swift, a woman, singing to another woman named Betty. And she's singing about how she misses her and she wants Betty back. She's freaking out over seeing Betty's face again because she doesn't know if Betty will take her back since she slept with another person all summer long after she saw Betty dance with a man and got jealous. So she's hyping herself up. She goes over to Betty's house. She's standing in Betty's cardigan on her front porch, and she's asking Betty to kiss her in front of all her stupid friends. Or that's what she's wanting Betty to do. So to me, the song was sapphic or could be viewed as sapphic without a doubt. The kissing in secrecy, wearing Betty's cardigan and her clothes, wanting Betty to kiss her in front of everyone, people who may disapprove of their relationship wanting Betty to kiss her in front of them. And you can say like this is stuff that teenagers do, being in secret and everything. So yeah, that's fine, but it's still sapphic to me. So when Betty came out, there were kids online who were talking about sapphic interpretations, and they got doxxed and outed after Taylor Swift came forth with more backstory about Betty and said that Betty was about a 17-year-old boy named James. Which it's like, okay, but you released a whole song named after a woman who you're singing to as a woman from the POV of James, who just so happens to be the same name as your friend's daughter, and who you were actually kind of named after as James Taylor. So no, I don't think that was Taylor Swift's intention, but that is what happened. They did get doxxed and outed. And so she's not really a great ally if she is an ally, like co-opting our symbolism, colors, history, and then gaylors get harassed for pointing that out. It is truly wild. It gets worse though, so let's go into the Lavender Gate scandal. So in Midnights, Taylor Swift released Lavender Haze. Lavender has significance to our community and it's been associated with us for a long time. For example, the Lavender Menace was a group of lesbians who came together to advocate for their rights after they'd been excluded from feminist groups in the 70s, the 60s and 70s. So feminists at the time believed that the lesbians would undermine their movement, so they were deemed menaces and they were excluded. So these lesbians came together and called themselves the Lavender Menaces, and they protested their exclusion at the Second Congress to Unite Women in New York City on May 1st, 1970, and they reclaimed the negative term that was used against them. Let's go into some more examples. So lavender was used as a derogatory term to describe gay men, and they were said to have a lavender streak in them. Carl Sandburg was Abraham Lincoln's biographer, and he described one of Lincoln's early friendships with the man as having a streak of lavender and spots soft as May violets. Another example that I mentioned earlier was the lavender scare. So President Eisenhower signed an executive order in 1953, which led to this hunt of finding gay men and women and firing them from their government jobs. So their lives became under heavy, scrutiny during this time. So this is from outhistory.org. In the summer of 1950, a committee of the U.S. Senate investigated the employment of homosexuals and other sex perverts in the government. Although they could not uncover a single example of a homosexual American citizen who had betrayed secrets as a result of blackmail, they wrote a highly circulated and influential report that asserted that gay men and lesbians exhibited weak moral character and had a corrosive influence on their fellow employees. So yeah, anyways, in 1953, that was signed. It launched and contributed to firing a bunch of people and investigating gay people and then barring them from employment. So I believe that excerpt also was from the Lavender Scare book, which is a book by a historian named David K. Johnson. We need to speak even more about lavender and poets. So there is one poem by James Schuler. He was a openly gay poet, and he has the poem called Sunday, and it reads, "The mint bed is in bloom, lavender haze day. The grass is more than green and throws up sharp and cutting lights to slice through the plane tree leaves. And on the cloudless blue I scribble your name." So that's one poem that uses lavender haze. Another interesting bit is Oscar Wilde, who was a famous queer gay poet as well and writer. He frequently reminisced about his purple hours spent with rent boys and provoked a moral scandal with the homoerotic themes in The Picture of Dorian Gray. So he also talked about purple hours, also definitely not condoning any of his relations possibly with teenagers. I'm not sure about that, but if that is the case, obviously I don't condone it. But yeah, he used that color to describe relations between men. About purple hours, he said, "How evil it is to buy love and how evil to sell it. And yet what purple hours one can snatch from that gray, slowly moving thing we call time. My mouth is twisted with kissing and I feed on fever. Another really cool example that I had no idea about is there was a song that was made in the 1920s in Berlin called the Lavender Song, and it's basically possibly considered as one of the first like gay pride songs or anthems. So they sing, "We're not afraid to be queer and different. If that means hell, well, hell, we'll take the chance." And then lavender nights are our greatest treasure, where we can be just who we want to be. The way that we dress, the way that we meet, the fact that you cannot destroy our love, we're going to win our rights to lavender days and nights. Lavender sashes were used to commemorate the Stonewall riots in 1969 and onwards. Lavender marriages is a term used to describe male-female relationships between people with socially stigmatized sexual orientations. So they would marry to feel or to look more socially acceptable. Also, these were in clauses at the time in Hollywood and in the film industry, where they had to have like these morality clauses. Some of those which included like homosexuality and not allowing that. And then besides that, being married to a man has usually always been a better career move, since men are viewed as they're more valued in our heteronormative society. So all of this to say, lavender is gay. So imagine our surprise when Taylor Swift said she heard Lavender Haze from Mad Men to describe being in love with someone, and she really liked it. She also said that the song was about the weird rumors that had been circulating around her. And this again was the green light to gaylors being harassed viciously online. And once the song came out, it became clear that the rumors were actually referring to the speculation around her being married. So let's go into the lyrics of the song. She says, "I've been under scrutiny, and I feel the lavender haze creeping up on me. Surreal. I'm damned if I do give a damn what people say. No deal. The 1950s shit they want from me. I just want to stay in that lavender haze. And all they keep asking me is if I'm gonna be your bride. The only kind of girl they see is a one night or a wife. I find it dizzying. They're bringing up my history. Talk your talk and go viral. I just need this love spiral. Get it off my desk. Get it off my desk." So she's singing about the 1950s, her history being under scrutiny, and her relationships possibly. She doesn't want that 1950s shit, like being married, having babies, basically these like heteronormative ideals. She's rejecting that, and she wants to stay in a lavender haze. So again, regardless of what Taylor Swift says about how she wrote that song, lavender has gay history attached to it, and people are allowed to comment on that, and they probably should, because our history has been erased. It hasn't been included. It hasn't been taught. So the only way for this to get taught is for people to talk about it. And she's using those references in her music. So it's a good jumping off point about the lavender scare, about the significance of lavender to our history. So now let's talk a little bit about the set of Lavender Haze in the Eras Tour. So in the Lavender Haze performance, the set resembles the cover from the publication called The Ladder, which was the first nationally distributed lesbian publication in the United States. It was published from 1956 to 1972. So the name of the magazine was derived from the artwork on its first cover. Simple line drawings showing figures moving towards a ladder that disappeared into the clouds. Very similar to Taylor Swift's set. So all of these things are coming together to paint a possible picture and narrative about the song Lavender Haze. And hits different from the special Lavender edition CD and vinyl, etc., etc. Again, I feel like I have to say this or else I'll get in trouble. I don't know how Taylor Swift identifies. I don't care. But it is gay. It is gay. Say gay. All right, let's talk about Evermore. So Evermore is the album that has a lot of sapphic undertones to it, which are fun to talk about. I'd say probably the most undertones, but honestly, most of her albums have them. So anyways, Taylor Swift has been influenced a lot by Emily Dickinson. She even said so. She actually said that if her lyrics sound like they were written by Emily's great-grandmother. That's Taylor writing in her quill style. So I do have to talk about Emily Dickinson a little bit. Emily was born on December 10th, 1830, and she was not a well-known poet during her life. Now she's regarded as one of America's greatest and most original poets. Emily played around with some gender pronouns in her poetry, and she also was rumored to be in love with her sister-in-law, Sue Gilbert. I need to give some more respect to Emily Dickinson, and Sue Gilbert. So most of Emily Dickinson's poems and everything was published. They were published after her death. I believe it was around 1850 when Emily met Sue Gilbert, and she wrote her over 300 letters during the time of her life, more than she wrote to any other person. Around that same time, Susan began being courted by Emily's brother Austin, and then they married in 1856. Although Susan was not very happy with Austin through their marriage, they didn't have a very happy marriage. A lot of scholars believe that Emily Dickinson and Sue, they were in a love triangle. Emily never married anyone. One of her letters from 1852, she says, "Susie, will you indeed come home next Saturday and be my own again, and kiss me as you used to? I hope for you so much, and feel so eager for you. I feel that I cannot wait. Feel that now I must have you. That the expectation once more to see your face again makes me feel hot and feverish, and my heart beats so fast. My darling, so near I seem to you that I disdain this pen and wait for a warmer language." Now, Emily and Susan, their relationship was portrayed in the film Wild Nights with Emily, and also a TV series, Dickinson. And funny enough, the song that we're going to speak about, Ivy by Taylor Swift, was featured in that TV series. So in the book, Figuring by Maria Popova, she writes about Emily Dickinson and the relationship that she had with Susan Gilbert. She uses a lot of the letters and poetry that Emily Dickinson had. So that's where a lot of the quotes that I'm reading from are where they're coming from. Well, obviously we can't say with 100% certainty of what Emily Dickinson's sexual orientation was, and also back then that was just different how that was perceived. So yeah, the concepts of bisexuality and things like that were probably a bit different. But the content of her letters show that she often seemed more passionate and really passionate about the woman in her life, and definitely with Sue Gilbert. So here are some of Emily's words. So nearly 2 decades after Susan entered her heart, she would write with unblunted desire, "To own a Susan of my own is of itself a bliss. Whatever realm I forfeit, Lord, continue me in this." I'll put a link to the page that I'm on because this is a really good article or breakdown of some of Emily Dickinson's words and poetry about Sue. In early 1852, she wrote about Susan saying, "Come with me this morning to the church within our hearts, where the bells are always ringing and the preacher whose name is Love shall intercede for us." Emily Dickinson would play around with gender a lot to make it more acceptable. Throughout her life, she would often use the masculine in referring to herself, writing of her boyhood, signing letters to her cousins as Brother Emily, calling herself a boy, prince, earl, or duke in various poems, one which she unsexes herself in a violent transfiguration. "Amputate my freckled bosom. Amputate my freckled bosom, make me bearded like a man." A lot of her poems would have 2 versions, and she would call her masculinized pronouns bearded pronouns. But yeah, 2 versions of the poems. The earlier would be addressed to a female, and then the latter to a male, or the later to a male. She also has a line that really seems to relate to Evermore, and Taylor Swift has also used Forevermore, so let me just read it. She said, "I chose this single star from out the wide night's numbers, Sue forevermore." She also says, "I need her, I must have her, oh, give her to me." So anyways, I'll stop there, but just know Taylor Swift has been very inspired by Emily Dickinson. So with that, let's get into one of my favorite songs, Ivy. So Ivy is probably one of Taylor's most sapphic songs, and it has some of her best writing. It's in the quill style, as she calls it, and she sings about how she longs to be with her lover, but they have to love in secrecy. And they're within a bit of a love triangle. The song opens with the singer, Taylor. She's grieving for the living. She's unable to be with this person and to love them openly. She sings, How's one to know? I'd meet you where the spirit meets the bones, in a faith-forgotten land. In from the snow, your touch brought forth an incandescent glow, tarnished but so grand. And the old widow goes to the stone every day, but I don't. I just sit here and wait, grieving for the living. She's grieving for what she can't have. A tarnished love, tarnished but so grand. She goes on to sing about how this person that she's longing to be with, their hands are freezing and her pain fits within them. She says, my pain fits in the palm of your freezing hand, taking mine, but it's been promised to another. I can't stop you from putting roots in my dreamland. My house of stone, your ivy grows, and now I'm covered in you. Then later on, she's in a room together with her secret lover. They're both in the same room. And this is the only time in the song where she's gonna sing a he, him pronoun. So it's in this verse where she sings, I wish to know the fatal flaw that makes you long to be magnificently cursed. He's in the room, but your opal eyes are all I wish to see. He wants what's only yours. So first, the way the love interest is described just seems to be sapphic. Like their freezing hands, the opal eyes. They're both in the room together, but no one seems to know that they might be like in love or having these intense feelings for one another while he's in the room. And then not only that, but she's wondering how this person is like magnificently cursed. Their love is tarnished. There's something innate within them that curses them, and if they give into it, they, will be cursed and damned possibly. And besides that, she can't give her husband the same love that she could give to this muse that they seem like innately cursed. I keep saying that, but it sounds like powerful. It's not just an affair. There's something about this that is, completely different. It has awakened something up in them. They're awake. So then she goes on to sing about like entertaining the idea of actually getting together with this lover. She says, clover blooms in the field, spring breaks loose, but so does fear. What would he do if he found us out? Crescent moon, coast is clear. Spring breaks loose, but so does fear. He's gonna burn this house to the ground. So yes, of course, having to keep your affair in secrecy is just like the name of the game. Not that I would know, but just saying, did that make sense? That sounded really suspicious. I'm serious. I don't know of affairs. But the references to being like cursed and needing to run, or their whole relationship in life is going to be burned to the ground, it's very dramatic and it's very gay. So then she goes on, how's one to know I'd live and die for moments that we stole on begged and borrowed time? So tell me to run or dare to sit and watch what will become and drink my husband's wine. And the way she sings that in the song, like it's so resentful almost, that she can't really like live her true self and love this person openly. So she's like, resigned, and I'll have to just drink my husband's wine if you don't tell me to run with you. And she goes on again, oh goddamn, my pain fits in the palm of your freezing hand, taking mine, but it's been promised to another. And then she goes on to sing about how this secret love has started like a fire in her life, and it started the biggest goddamn war and fight of her life. She says, so yeah, it's a fire. It's a goddamn blaze in the dark, and you started it. You started it. So yeah, it's a war. It's the goddamn fight of my life, and you started it. You started it. And she goes on, oh, I can't stop you from putting roots in my dreamland. My house of stone, your ivy grows. I'm covered in you. So this is powerful. And throughout the song, she says goddamn a lot and like cursed, tarnished. So again, it's very dramatic. This love is something that could ruin them. They can't do it openly at all. So yeah, I love that song. I think it's some of her best writing that she's ever done. To be honest, I don't think I'm going to go much further into this video because I think I've already proved my point. And like I said, it would be like a 6-hour video if I went through every single album and reference. That could be fun though, to like do individual albums maybe, or talk like more in depth about it, but I mostly just wanted to like speak in defense of Gaylors. If you are interested about like closeting in the industry, I definitely would recommend looking up Shelly Wright and some of her interviews. She was a country she was a country singer who came out, I believe, in like 2010 or around that time. She had a mental breakdown at the age of, I believe it was 35, and she came out. But yeah, the industry, it made her closet. She was dating an NFL or football player. I think he was in the NFL. I don't care about football. Just know though that she was dating a football player and dated another big country star as well. And then she again eventually just had a breakdown and she had to come out, and she did lose a lot of her fame. I might leave a link to one of Shelly Wright's interviews that's really interesting, where she talks about how more people will have to come out to bring down this like machine within the industry of keeping people in the closet. Now, I do wonder if Taylor Swift likes to see how much she can get away with and she gets a laugh out of it. Like, how many times can she wear the flags and do these mashups before people recognize that she's doing it very intentionally? Without fail though, if you bring it up, people are gonna immediately say it's gross to speculate. But like, unironically, I have a recent example of this. So when I heard the Mine mashup that she did during the acoustic set, I wanted to be sure I heard it correctly. So I found this video and I was like, oh, this is awesome. This person wrote out the lyrics to the mashup that she did. And sure enough, Taylor Swift left out the part of the song where she says, "You said," which makes it sound like she's singing about a different perspective, where the guy is singing to her about falling in love. She leaves that out and just says, "I fell in love with a careless man's careful daughter." So people in the comments were like, oh, this is really sapphic. And the creator of the video, she says, "That's so gross and weird to speculate." And it's like, girl, you typed that out. What is not clicking? You typed out what she said, and what she said was sapphic. Now, I didn't talk about this, but people also will bring up the CNN business article that came out and was like, one of Taylor's associates anonymously said that this is invasive and speculative and gross after a New York Times like opinion piece came out on Taylor Swift's flagging. And it's like, I might get canceled for this. I don't care. Even if one of her associates, she was saying this stuff, she made it everyone's business when she said gay pride makes me, me. When she had a whole era devoted to gay pride and centered herself in that way, she kind of made it everyone's business at that point. So I don't even view it as like speculation and invasive when she did it openly and has continued to wear these flags. And also, that was a business article in the CNN business section, okay, from an anonymous source. Taylor Swift multiple times has come out and will write something on Twitter or in a TikTok comment if she doesn't like something. Like when people were speculating about her being pregnant and her body, she came out herself and said, please don't do that, through her own mouth. She didn't have like some anonymous associate do it and then also throw Shawn Mendes under the fucking bus in the process. So to conclude, I don't think Taylor Swift is deep in the closet. I don't think she's hiding like at all. She said gay pride makes her the person that she is. She's intentionally including a lot of this imagery in her set and in her music. She's described herself as a literal rainbow. She's written a song to an argumentative dream girl. So she's continued to wear the bi flag, what looks like the lesbian flag as well. And she knows what these colors mean because she had the whole era. So if she's just an ally, she hasn't been the best one, okay, since her ally era. But to the Swifties who want to argue that she is just an ally, I think they need to think about how she centered herself in a marginalized community and profited off of doing that, profited off of that culture, like our significance of lavender and all of these things, and has pretty much washed out, has not like publicly spoken about how there is queer history tied to these things. And unfortunately, a lot of her gay fans have been harassed because of this. And like I said, I think the visuals on her tour of closets, yellow, all of this. And so anyways, I think that combined with the mashups and everything, she's really telling this narrative and she's okay with people analyzing that. So in conclusion, do I think some people might take it too far in like analyzing every single thing Taylor does, like, in public? Yeah, probably so. Do I think every gaylor is some crazy person who's, like, projecting on her and needs her to be gay? Absolutely not. The woman said gay pride makes her the person that she is, and she did all of these things that led people to believe that she was a part of the LGBTQ community and kept wearing all of this and doing this, and singing to a dream girl. So I think it's just silly at this point to even, like, get upset at people talking about it when she's been so public and done all of this. But I rest my case. Goodbye.